Brian Keith, born November 14, 1921, in Bayonne, New Jersey, became the heart of family affair as Bill Davis, the wealthy Manhattan bachelor engineer who never planned on raising children, yet found himself guardian to 3 orphan nieces and nephews, turning a penthouse into a home full of chaos, love, and Mrs. Beasley. He carried the role across all 5 seasons and 138 episodes, and the performance earned him 3 consecutive Emmy nominations for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series, 1967, 1968, and 1969, though the win never came. Then in 1997, everything unraveled at once. He was fighting terminal lung cancer and emphysema. His finances had collapsed. And just 10 weeks before his own end, on April 17th, his daughter Daisy took her own life at 27. On the morning of June 24, 1997, family members found Brian at his home in Malibu, California. He was 75 years old. A self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. The coroner ruled it suicide. Sebastian Cabot, born July 6, 1918, in London, England, a man who left school at 14, worked as a chauffeur, trained himself to act, and somehow arrived at one of television's most beloved roles, stepped into family affair as Giles French, the impeccably proper British gentleman's gentleman who found himself navigating sticky fingers, runaway twins, and the organized chaos of 3 grieving children in a Manhattan penthouse. He played Mr. French across nearly the full run of the show, and the role earned him 2 Emmy nominations, 1967 and 1968, for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series. Beyond the show, his rich, unhurried voice made him the narrator Disney kept calling back, Winnie the Pooh, Bagheera in the Jungle Book, and in 1975, that same voice won him a Grammy for Best Recording for Children. But the body was already giving way. In 1974, he suffered a stroke serious enough to pull him away from the show for a period. He survived it and returned. Then in the summer of 1977, he had retired quietly to Deep Cove, British Columbia, living near Victoria, when the second stroke came. He was taken to hospital but never recovered. On August 22, 1977, Sebastian Cabot died at the age of 59. Kathy Garver, born December 13, 1945, in Long Beach, California, was 20 years old and a student at UCLA when she was cast as 15-year-old Catherine Sissy Davis on Family Affair, the eldest of the 3 orphan children, the one who held the family together with quiet strength and a maturity beyond her years across all 138 episodes and 5 seasons. The show brought no Emmy for Sissy, but the role made her a genuine 1960s television icon. And the awards came in different forms and in different chapters of her life, multiple audio awards for audiobook narration, a Golden Palm Star on the Palm Springs Walk of Stars in 1995, a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Young Artist Foundation in 2010, and in early 2026, her first Grammy nomination for Best Audiobook, Narration and Storytelling Recording for her work on Elvis, Rocky and Me. She is 80 years old as of 2026, active and working with multiple films in production, a new book released on Valentine's Day 2026, and a documentary about the 60th anniversary of Family Affair in the works. Anissa Jones, born March 11, 1958, in West Lafayette, Indiana, was just 8 years old when she walked onto the set of Family Affair and became Buffy Davis, the pig-tailed, soft-spoken little girl who carried her talking doll Mrs. Beasley everywhere and melted America's heart across 138 episodes and 5 full seasons. When the show was canceled in 1971, Anissa was 13. She tried to find new roles, but every casting director saw only Buffy. She was turned away from The Exorcist, reportedly because audiences couldn't separate her from that little girl in pigtails. The years that followed were quiet and then troubled. On her 18th birthday in March 1976, she received her trust fund, roughly $180,000 in cash and over $100,000 in bonds. 5 months later, on August 28, 1976, she was found unresponsive in an upstairs bedroom of a friend's house in Oceanside, California. Paramedics arrived at 12:34 in the afternoon. She was already gone. The coroner ruled her death an accidental overdose, cocaine, PCP, Quaaludes, and Seconal, calling it one of the most severe drug overdoses he had ever seen in San Diego County. A doctor who had been illegally prescribing her medication was charged, but died of cancer before the trial. John E. Whitaker, born December 13, 1959, in Van Nuys, California, born on the exact same day as his co-star Kathy Garver, 13 years later, stepped in front of the family affair cameras at age 6 as Jody Davis, the freckle-faced, red-haired little boy who came to New York with his twin sister Buffy and older sister Sissy after their parents died, and promptly made the whole country fall in love with him. He played Jody for all 5 seasons and 138 episodes, and while the role brought no Emmy nomination, it made him one of the most recognized child faces of his generation. He followed it with Disney Films, a starring role in the 1973 musical Tom Sawyer, and his own Sid and Marty Krofft series, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. But after the cameras stopped, a different kind of life began. In 1999, he received the former Child Star Lifetime Achievement Award from the Young Artist Foundation. As of 2026, at 66 years old, he is sober, writing his memoirs, working on a documentary about Portugal's drug policy, and still showing up the same way he always did, just for different reasons now. Heather Angel, born February 9, 1909, in Oxford, England, carried 6 decades of craft into family affair as Miss Faversham, the graceful, soft-spoken British friend of Mr. French who appeared in 18 episodes across the series, bringing a quiet warmth and old-world dignity to the world of the Davis penthouse. The role brought no award nominations, but she had earned her place in Hollywood history long before Family Affair came along. She held a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame awarded in 1960, appeared in Alfred Hitchcock's Lifeboat, and gave her voice to 2 Disney classics, Alice's sister in Alice in Wonderland and Mrs. Darling in Peter Pan. In 1970, while she was still part of Family Affair, a violent intruder broke into her home and stabbed her husband, director Robert B. Sinclair, to death, a tragedy she survived but never fully left behind. She continued working quietly until 1979. Then, in December 1986, at her home in Montecito near Santa Barbara, California, after a long battle with cancer, Heather Angel passed away. It was December 13, 1986. Nancy Walker, born Anna Myrtle Sawyer on May 10, 1922, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, daughter of a vaudevillian, barely 5 feet tall, with a voice that could cut glass and a comedic instinct that could stop a room, arrived in Family Affair in its final season as Emily Turner, the loud, opinionated, delightfully unpolished part-time housekeeper hired to help Mr. French survive the Davis household. She was only there for the 5th and final season, 1970 to 1971, but her blunt, fast-talking personality clashing against Sebastian Cabot's rigid British formality was exactly the kind of comedy she was built for. The Family Affair role brought no nomination, but the years that followed more than made up for it. She earned 7 Emmy nominations and 4 Golden Globe nominations across her work on Macmillan and Wife and Rhoda, plus 20 years as Rosie the waitress in those iconic Bounty paper towel commercials. She had beaten lung cancer once, in 1982. It came back. She kept working anyway, finishing episodes of True Colors from a wheelchair in her final months. On March 25, 1992, at her home in Studio City, California, Nancy Walker died of lung cancer at the age of 69. Betty Lynn, born Elizabeth Ann Teresa Lynn on August 29, 1926, in Kansas City, Missouri, a woman who once traveled the dangerous Burma Road to entertain troops during World War II, brought that same quiet courage to everything she touched, including her recurring role as Miss Lee, Uncle Bill's composed and reliable secretary in the early seasons of Family Affair. In 2007, she left West Hollywood after 2 home break-ins and moved to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's real hometown, the town that inspired Mayberry, where she spent her final years meeting fans every month at the Andy Griffith Museum, signing autographs, turning no one away. She was still working on her autobiography when she fell briefly ill. On October 16, 2021, Betty Lynn passed away peacefully in Mount Airy. She was 95 years old. A private burial was held in Culver City, California. Carl Lukas. Born Carol Louis Lukasiak on August 21, 1919 in Lowell, Massachusetts, a man who once worked the overnight change booth in a New York subway just to fund his dream of acting, eventually found his way to family affair as Scotty Parker, the friendly, dependable doorman at the luxury Manhattan apartment building where Uncle Bill Davis raised his 3 children. He appeared across the first 3 seasons, roughly 10 episodes, and while Scotty wasn't a name anyone discussed at the Emmys, he was the kind of character that made a fictional world feel real, the steady face at the door, the familiar greeting, the small human detail that anchored everything else. Carl had built his career quietly, dependably, from the 1948 Broadway production of Mr. Roberts alongside Henry Fonda to 96 episodes as Private Stash Kadofsky in the Phil Silvers Show to films like Blazing Saddles and Tora. He retired from acting in 1991, spent his final years doing charity work and attending autograph conventions for fans of classic television. On January 16, 1995, Carl Lukas died of heart failure at his home in Westlake Village, California. Sherry Alberoni. Born December 4, 1946, in Cleveland, Ohio, a girl who started modeling at age 2 and was playing the trumpet before most children could read, joined the second season of the Mickey Mouse Club at 9 years old as a Mouseketeer, then built a television career that carried her straight into family affair as Sharon James, Sissy Davis's bubbly, spirited best friend who appeared in 9 episodes across the show's first 3 seasons, often serving as the spark that set the storyline in motion. She married Dr. Richard Van Meter on her birthday in 1971 and stepped back from the industry to build a life, though she never fully disappeared, attending Mouseketeer reunions, staying connected to the Disney community, and in 2026, still celebrated as one of the last Mouseketeers from that era, a grandmother of 4 living in Southern California, and remembered warmly by everyone who grew up watching her on screen. Sean Hubbard. Born April 14, 1914, in East Chicago, Indiana, a debonair leading man who had studied at Chicago's Goodman Theater, signed with Paramount, and stepped in as a reliable screen presence throughout Hollywood's wartime years, arrived in Family Affair during its very first season as Ted Gaynor, the polished business partner of Uncle Bill Davis. He appeared in 8 episodes, a steady professional presence that helped establish the world Bill Davis came from before 3 children changed everything. After retiring from acting in the early 1980s, he managed a restaurant, sold cars, and lived quietly with his wife Lois, his high school sweetheart, married nearly 50 years. On November 6, 1988, at the age of 74, John Hubbard passed away in a convalescent home in Camarillo, California. The cause was kidney failure.